A very bad person is going to marry with your ex. My child, the air felt heavy like a room before a storm, and every second carried a warning you could feel in your bones. A very bad person has stepped into the picture with a smile that hides sharp edges and a plan that threatens your peace. Tonight begins a chain of moments that tries to pull your past into your present and rearrange your future. You sensed it before the words reached you, the hush around your name when certain people speak. This energy is not simple, and this story is not gentle. A hidden agreement has formed in the dark and now presses toward a vow that was never written for your destiny. Your ex walks inside a circle that closes like a fist while the crowd pretends to celebrate. The music will try to cover the tremor, yet the tremor keeps moving through the floorboards of fate. A mask will glitter under the lights as if it were true gold, although the truth behind it remains cold and unkind. A phone lights up in another room and carries the proof that silence tried to hide. Messages travel like secret birds at midnight and land on a table where nobody looks. Those messages describe you with twisted lines because someone needs the lie more than they want the light. A door closes at the back of the venue, and someone posts a smile that never touches their eyes. Rings clink like coins that have passed through too many hands. The promise spoken here carries the weight of control rather than love, and control wants to keep you small. You stand at the edge of remembrance, and the past tries to stage a return. The bad one moves like a director who rewrites scenes and gives your ex a role that erases old kindness. Every cue is designed to make you doubt your worth and your path forward. A whisper spreads like a spill and stains the floor of memory. Names you do not speak anymore float back as if the night wanted to summon doubt. Yet your spirit keeps its ground and refuses to kneel before a false crown. They plan an entrance that feels dramatic and loud, but the intention behind it is quiet and calculated. A smile will glide across the room and touch every table as if blessing the audience. Inside that smile sits a contract without ink that still tries to bind souls by fear. The necklace on that throat belongs to a story that never tells the whole truth. Gifts have been exchanged as camouflage, and favors have been spent like coins stolen from another life. The light schemes across polished surfaces without warming them. You do not owe yesterday any more tears, and you do not owe tomorrow any apology for healing. The thread you carry is stronger than the knot they try to tighten. Your spirit has already marked a boundary that cannot be crossed without consequence. Type Amen to get blessing 333. Your heart rises above the trap and holds its original promise. What was meant for harm collapses into dust beneath your feet. In the corner, a friend of a friend tries to introduce doubt with a gentle tone that hides a blade. Their story moves like a lullaby that wants you to sleep through danger. You refuse the lullaby and keep your eyes open to the pattern unfolding. The band changes keys while the bad one counts the steps of the night. Every step measures your ex against old fears instead of new courage. This is not love because love does not need a cage to breathe. You remember the way your ex laughed once upon a lighter day. That memory feels like a room in sunlight where the windows were not locked and the door did not snap shut. The contrast tells you everything you need about the atmosphere drifting through this evening. Someone rehearses vows in a mirror with a script written to impress rather than to honor. The script sounds perfect and empty at the same time. It moves like perfume that smells expensive and still stings the eyes. Another guest snaps photos as if the future could be frozen into the shape of this moment. Pictures capture smiles but cannot capture intentions. Behind the smiles sits a hunger that never learned the meaning of respect. The planner checks the schedule and whispers about timing. The bad one watches the clock like a collector who counts rare coins. Every minute feels planned to trap rather than to celebrate. A floral arch stretches across the aisle, and petals lie like fallen secrets. The arrangement tries to soften the room while the plan hardens in the background. The scent is sweet and the purpose is bitter. Your intuition presses a palm against the glass and leaves a clear print. It refuses to be dismissed by loud music or glittering lights. It knows a wolf even when the wolf is wearing silk. The bad one speaks softly and directs the room with invisible strings. People smile, nod, and agree because agreement feels easier than truth. The truth still waits by the exit with the patience of a river. You take a breath that belongs to you alone. You do not chase or plead, and you do not trade your peace for a seat in the audience. Your path lifts like a road that rises to meet higher ground. You see the pattern more clearly now, the way control hides inside charm. Control asks for secrets and punishes honesty, while charm claps on the surface like applause. Love does neither because love is brave enough to be plain. A story circulates about how perfect this pairing looks on paper. Paper can be folded and torn without shedding a tear. Souls cannot be folded without leaving creases that last a lifetime. You receive a sign in the simple way a curtain moves when there is no wind. The sign does not shout, and it does not perform. It confirms what you already know about the difference between gold and gilding. The toast rises like steam and fogs the edges of the room. The bad one speaks of forever as if forever were a prize to put on a shelf. Your name is never spoken because your truth stands taller than the speech. Type Amen to get blessing 444. Your steps become guided, your voice becomes steady, and your boundaries stand like gates of light. What belongs to you returns by roads that cannot be blocked. You remember promises you made to yourself when your heart was learning to breathe again. Those promises do not bow to drama or force. They keep you whole while the night tries to divide you. The photographer asks for one more pose, and people lean into a shape that proves nothing. The shape will not hold when morning arrives with clear eyes. Morning always asks for truth even when truth arrives without decorations. Outside, the sky prepares a new page while the room clings to an old script. The bad one never expects the sky to keep score. The sky keeps score with quiet integrity. Someone carries a small box meant to surprise the crowd. The box glitters and distracts while the real surprise hides in the choreography of control. The gift inside costs less than the price of the strings attached. Your ex hears the music and forgets the voice inside that once spoke clearly. The voice is not gone, only muffled by arrangements and applause. Arrangements and applause fade, while the soul remains. A server passes with a tray and sees what others will not admit. Their eyes catch the angle of a glance that means ownership rather than love. Ownership always leaves fingerprints, even on silence. The first dance will feel sweet and scripted, with turns practiced until they almost look natural. The bad one counts steps and corrections, not feelings and freedom. Freedom is not invited, and that is the loudest sign in the room. A plan expands under the table where the contracts lie quiet. The pen waits for signatures, and the cost hides in the fine print nobody reads out loud. The fine print demands your peace as collateral, which is a debt your spirit refuses to pay. You receive another sign when you notice how the bad one never apologizes. They perform charm in public and hoard power in private. Power without humility always ends up alone, even in a crowded room. A relative nods, a neighbor smiles, and a distant friend decides not to speak. Silence stacks into a wall that encourages the ceremony forward. Walls look sturdy until truth walks through them like morning light. You breathe again and decide to remain aligned with your best self. Alignment carries you past comparisons and into clarity. Clarity does not need revenge because clarity is already victory. The officiant clears a throat and the room hushes with a thrill that feels like a trap. The bad one loves the hush because control thrives in silence. Love thrives in understanding, and understanding is missing from this script. A rush of images passes through your mind, not to hurt you but to sober you. You see patterns, choices, and the cost of pretending. You resolve to honor the cost by refusing to pay it. You recognize that this wedding is not your ending. It is a page in a book you are no longer writing. Your chapter now begins with trust in the timing that protects you from what is not yours. The bad one believes victory has arrived and that your spirit will shrink. Your spirit grows instead and fills the room with quiet certainty. Certainty does not argue because certainty has already chosen peace. You rest your attention on what you can control, which is the door you guard with dignity. Dignity becomes your shelter as thunder gathers far away. The storm can roar, and you can still sleep. Type Amen to get blessing 555. The past releases its grip, the present gathers its strength, and the future unfurls like calm water under a bright sky. Your life becomes a sanctuary where false power cannot enter. The band plays a final set that tries to sell a dream on credit. Credit runs out when the bill arrives with truth on the header. The dream collapses because it was never rooted in love. You remember nights you prayed for clarity that did not seem to come. The clarity arrives now in the shape of your own courage. Courage looks like walking away without turning into stone. The bad one counts compliments like trophies and hears only the noise that feeds their mask. Masks grow heavy when real life begins. Real life has a way of asking for simple kindness that a mask cannot provide. A breeze moves across the threshold as the doors open for departure. The crowd drifts, the lights dim, and the stage resets for morning. Morning always tests the vows by the softness of ordinary hours. Your ex will wake to the weight of the choice that has been made. The weight will not respond to applause or photos. It will respond only to change, and change requires truth. Your path remains bright because you kept it clean of bitterness. Your patience becomes strength and your boundaries become wisdom. Wisdom promises a harvest that does not depend on anyone else's weather. The bad one wanted your reaction more than anything else. You gave them silence wrapped in dignity and walked forward. That walk becomes your anthem and your shield. Messages may arrive that try to bait you into old arguments. The bait dissolves when it falls into the river of your calm. Calm is not weakness because calm is the language of mastery. You hold steady while the crowd disperses and the venue empties into the night. The last song fades and the florals breathe out their final sweetness. The world turns and carries you into a safer chapter. If the past calls, you answer with gratitude for lessons and not for invitations. Lessons bless the journey without demanding a return to old roads. Invitations to harm no longer reach your door. A better love studies your quiet and respects your pace. It never needs to control, and it never needs to dim you to shine. It holds your hand in daylight without hiding you in darkness. You move with confidence through the next mornings as they line up like bright stones. Each step belongs to you and grows your authority over your own heart. Authority over your own heart is the crown that cannot be stolen. The story of this night becomes a testimony to your discernment. Discernment listens without surrendering to fear. Fear loses its hold when faced with a soul that knows its worth. The bad one will search for a mirror that flatters rather than a mirror that reflects. Flattery breaks quickly under the strain of real life. Reflection arrives whether it is welcomed or not. A new door appears for you that was not visible before. It opens because you chose alignment over drama. Alignment becomes the map through every future season. The sky softens, the air clears, and the city wakes with honest light. Honest light does not hide what hurts, and it does not hide what heals. It invites you to walk in the open with a steady heartbeat. You release the image of who you needed your ex to be. You bless your old self for trying and you bless your present self for learning. The blessing doubles when you refuse to carry blame that does not belong to you. Your table fills with simple goodness that asks for nothing except your presence. You taste the peace that comes from boundaries and truth. This taste becomes your new normal. A message arrives from someone who truly sees you. Their words do not perform and their affection does not manipulate. You recognize real warmth the way a traveler recognizes home. The bad one continues their performance for whichever audience remains. Performances lose power when the audience learns to see. You have learned to see, and that sight is your freedom. You no longer revisit the hallway of old arguments in the middle of the night. Sleep returns like a friend who kept your place at the table. Morning greets you without the echoes of yesterday's traps. Love will meet you where control cannot survive. Love will ask for honesty and bring safety to your door. Safety grows gardens where fear tried to plant thorns. Your ex will face their own crossroads without your voice carrying their steps. That is not cruelty because that is how growth respects itself. You bless them from a distance and keep walking. The ring in that room will never fit a soul that refuses to shrink. Your soul refuses to shrink, and therefore it shines. Shining like this changes the story without any loud announcement. The very bad person wanted to script your fate by writing their name across a page that was not theirs. Your fate refuses every counterfeit signature. The angels of your destiny file the correct record and stamp it with peace. You remember that grace is not a show and healing is not a performance. Grace keeps you soft without making you small. Healing keeps you strong without making you hard. From this night forward, you love your life with a loyalty that protects your spirit. You choose friendships that feel like sunlight on winter mornings. You allow romance to approach only with gentleness and truth. The door closes on the venue and opens on your new season. A safer rhythm begins and continues even when the world's music gets loud. Your heart learns a tempo that cannot be stolen by tricks. Your destiny will not be delayed by the ceremony of a counterfeit vow. Your purpose walks past rented arches and into fields that stretch farther than fear. You leave with quiet triumph and bright direction. You step into the street and the city breathes with you. The night releases its tension as your shoulders relax. Home waits, and home is peace, and peace is yours. The air beyond that wedding still carried tension like smoke after a fire. The night ended, but the energy of what had been plotted lingered in corners and shadows. It was not simply about two people making a vow, it was about a trap that was waiting to snap shut. The bad one celebrated as if the stage had been conquered, but inside they carried secrets heavy enough to crack glass. Their future was built on lies, and lies always demand silence from those around them. Silence, however, never holds forever, it begins to leak like water through old stone. Your ex stepped into this alliance thinking it was strength, but what they touched was poison dressed in silk. That poison will not just take from them, it will also try to send ripples back toward you. Yet your boundaries are already marked in light, and light cannot be stolen by trickery. The whispers outside the hall speak a different story than the music inside. People begin to notice contradictions, the way charm fades when no eyes are watching. Behind the mask, the truth becomes too loud to remain hidden. Type Amen to get blessing 666. Your spirit stays higher than the game, and no chain of false vows can drag you under. What is bound in darkness has no power over a chosen heart. The days that follow bring moments where the cracks show clearly. The bad one tries to tighten control and prove authority, but the proof feels hollow. Your ex begins to feel the weight of choices pressed by pressure rather than guided by love. You are reminded that sometimes protection looks like separation. You were moved out of reach of this storm not by accident but by design. The same design now shields you from the turbulence that grows in their new home. The bad one celebrates victories on the surface but fights battles in private. They fight against their own emptiness, against the constant fear of losing power. That fear makes them restless, and restlessness will always betray itself. The curtain of illusion begins to thin, and the mask slips at unexpected times. A cruel word here, a dismissive gesture there, each one leaves a mark. Those marks add up until the image of perfection cannot be maintained anymore. The people who once clapped at the ceremony start to whisper in softer tones. They notice changes in your ex's eyes, changes in their walk. The sparkle that was sold to them begins to fade like old paint. You remain steady in your own journey, refusing to watch with bitterness. The strength in you now becomes an example for those who might need courage later. Courage has a way of becoming contagious, even through silence. Type Amen to get blessing 777. You will not inherit their storm, instead, you inherit peace. You rise with protection, and no false crown will weigh you down. The bad one planned a future on control, but control is built on sand. Sand shifts when storms arrive, and storms cannot be avoided forever. Already, the ground beneath their union begins to shake. Your ex, once blind, begins to feel the truth even if they cannot yet admit it. Truth often arrives first as discomfort, then as doubt, then finally as clarity. Clarity is slow but unstoppable. The very bad person thought they had locked destiny in their grip. But destiny does not obey deceit. It bends only toward truth and alignment. More signs will reveal themselves, each one undeniable. The night that seemed like a triumph for them becomes the very stage where their downfall begins. You watch from a distance, calm in knowing you were saved from the trap. The morning after the ceremony arrived with the kind of quiet that exposes everything. Photographs sat on screens like pressed flowers that already began to lose color. The glitter could not hide the weight settling behind closed doors. The very bad one moved through the house counting favors like coins pulled from other people's pockets. Control needed inventory more than it needed love. Your ex sensed the ledger even if they could not describe it. Rumors traveled along hallways where mirrors watched without blinking. A smile that once looked bright now revealed edges that never softened. The silence between sentences carried instructions that were not spoken. Little by little, the mask failed to keep its shape. A harsh glance left a crack that spread like a line through glass. The crack wandered into every room until even the lights seemed careful. You kept your distance while remaining fully awake. Distance did not mean you were cold, it meant you were wise. Wisdom protected your heart like a lantern that refuses to burn out. Days began to thread themselves into a pattern of control, apology, and control again. The bad one choreographed people like pieces on a board. Pieces began to remember they were not owned. A neighbor noticed the way laughter turned thin at the doorway. The air in that house learned to listen before speaking. Listening like this only happens when people are afraid. You did not entertain the pull of old arguments. Your peace stayed pointed forward like a compass that ignores magnets. Magnets lost their grip because your direction refused to change. At a dinner that was meant to impress, a story was told with perfect timing. The story cut someone small so the teller could look tall. Tallness like this always stands on stilts that shake. Your ex began to notice how welcome disappeared when honesty tried to sit at the table. Honesty had to stand in the doorway and wait for courage to arrive. Courage arrived late, but it still arrived. The bad one tightened circles and made new rules with soft smiles. Softness on the surface did not change the rules underneath. The rules carried penalties dressed as concern. You continued building a life that did not revolve around old shadows. Bright work filled your days and gentle friendships filled your nights. Your calendar became a garden instead of a surveillance map. News reached you that an apology had been rehearsed but not delivered. The rehearsal sounded elegant and empty. Empty words rattle like beads in a jar when the lid is shaken. A ring glinted under kitchen lights while the room cooled. The glint felt like a warning rather than a prize. Warnings like this ask a person to look quietly at the truth. Someone close to the bad one began keeping notes in a private place. The notes were not revenge, they were memory markers for self-respect. Self-respect grows where truth is watered. Your name floated through conversations as a reference point for what could have been. The comparison did not sting because you had already blessed your own choice to move on. Blessing your choice turned comparison into dust that could not cling. The calendar reached a date meant to celebrate their progress. Progress announced itself with decorations and still could not create ease. Ease does not grow in soil that punishes honesty. An old friend of your ex reached out to share concern without asking for your involvement. Concern spoke carefully and did not invite drama. It offered observation like a mirror that does not distort. You heard that a weekend trip had ended in silence so thick the ocean could not dissolve it. The very bad one returned with a new plan to tighten the schedule. Tight schedules keep freedom from finding a door. Your dreams began to open windows where your body could not. In those dreams you walked through rooms and touched doorknobs that were not locked. You woke with the memory of rooms that knew your name. The bad one grew restless because control always requires more proof. Proof demanded new performances and new audiences. Audiences grow tired, even when the tickets are free. A message that was meant to hurt you arrived with the wrong tone. The tone revealed the hunger behind the words. Hunger like this never fills, it only empties other people. You answered with silence and continued your day like strong weather. Strong weather does not explain itself to roofs that leak. It simply moves and cleans the air. A gift appeared on your doorstep from someone who remembered your kindness. The card did not mention the past, it honored the present. The present began to feel like a home with real walls. Meanwhile, the House of Control learned how heavy pretense becomes when morning starts early. Morning asked for patience and service that performance could not supply. Performance blinked under the light and misplaced its lines. Your ex watched the distance between image and reality widen like a road with no railing. The gap could not be ignored because it made daily life uneven. Uneven ground forces the feet to learn truth. Another dinner ended with a smile that never reached the eyes. Doors closed and voices fell into corners. Corners remember more than chandeliers. You received word that an important conversation finally happened. It did not explode, it unfolded. Unfolding like this can still change an entire map. A calendar invite was cancelled without explanation. This small change spoke louder than a speech. Small honest changes build the bridge that speeches only promise. The bad one blamed shadows instead of looking at the sun. Shadows can be useful for hiding, but they do not help anything grow. Growth needs light that tells the truth. Your routine carried you into brighter rooms where your name did not have to defend itself. New work met you with respect instead of performance tests. Respect settles the heart the way rain settles dust. You noticed how your sleep improved without effort. Night carried you softly because you were no longer on alert. Safety arrived like a gentle tide that never rushed. Someone tried to pull you into commentary that would disturb your peace. You declined with kindness and kept your hands clean. Clean hands hold new blessings with a steady grip. The very bad one launched another project built on image. Image arranged itself beautifully and still felt hollow. Hollow projects echo louder than real work because they are mostly air. Your ex started keeping quiet promises to themselves. Quiet promises are the seeds of transformation. Seeds break open in the dark before anyone sees the green. A holiday approached and the pressure to perform as a perfect couple increased. Pressure makes diamonds only under the right conditions. Under the wrong conditions it cracks patience instead. You spent that holiday surrounded by people who laughed with their whole faces. Laughter like this heals places that medicine does not reach. Healing arrived without a headline and stayed. A late-night drive turned into the first honest talk they had in months. Honesty did not shout, it breathed. Breathing like this brought color back to places that had gone gray. You heard that the bad one refused the new air and called it disloyalty. Disloyalty became a label used to hold power. Labels like this peel off when touched by steady truth. The next week, a mentor stepped in with a quiet word. The word was not an order, it was a mirror. Mirrors save time when courage decides to look. Your ex chose to see what the mirror showed. Seeing did not fix everything in a minute, but it started to fix direction. Direction fixes futures more than any apology rehearsed for a crowd. The performance era began to end in small, clear steps. Control tried rewrite after rewrite and ran out of drafts. Real life arrived with errands, bills, and the need for tenderness. You walked a peaceful street at sunset and felt how far you had come. The air tasted new and the city felt like an ally instead of a test. Your life no longer negotiated with old storms. News reached you that separate calendars were now being kept. Separate calendars are the early language of separate paths. Paths choose themselves once truth is allowed to speak. There was no spectacle, only a steady closing of doors that did not lead to peace. The bad one searched for a louder stage and found only empty seats. Empty seats do not applaud when masks bow. You blessed what taught you and released what tried to own you. Release did not mean forgetting, it meant freedom. Freedom grew roots where your patience had watered the ground. On an ordinary morning, the future arrived without drums. It arrived as clear choices, steady work, and a heart that did not splinter. Splinters fell away because you refused to carry them. Your ex stepped into accountability without a crowd. Accountability made them lighter instead of smaller. Lighter hearts learn faster. The very bad one looked for mirrors that flattered and found windows that opened. Windows let the air in even when people try to keep it out. Air will always find a way to breathe. You moved forward with a calm that could not be staged. The calm came from knowing what you will and will not accept. This knowing became your quiet crown. The season closed without fireworks and still felt victorious. Victory sometimes looks like a table set for one with peace sitting across from you. Peace eats slowly and stays for dessert. A new message arrived from a future that respects your boundaries. It sounded like loyalty, felt like safety, and moved like truth. You opened the door because your spirit recognized the tone. From here on, your story grows without permission from the past. The past may wave from a distance, but it no longer directs traffic. Your heart now leads with clarity, and clarity keeps the road clean. The city lights rose as the evening settled, and you walked home without a shadow behind you. Home welcomed you with the warmth you always deserved. The night closed gently, and your next chapter opened on time.